So, picture this. I'm sitting outside my mom's house, heart racing, trying to look calm, and inside, my sister's new rich boyfriend is already charming everyone like he owns the place. Everyone expects me to be the awkward, struggling sister. But here's the twist. They have no idea who I really am or what I'm capable of. And tonight, it's not just a dinner. Something big is about to happen, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. I sat in my car, engine idling, staring at the front door of my mom's house like it was some kind of battlefield. My hands shook, just a little on the wheel, not from fear, but from the exhaustion that had settled into my bones like wet sand, heavy and abrasive. I hadn't slept properly in 3 days, barely eaten, and every blink felt like a conscious effort. My eyes were dry, gritty, and my reflection in the rearview mirror was almost unrecognizable. Dark circles, pale skin, hair pulled back in a strict bun that I hadn't touched since leaving the office at 4 a. I looked exactly like what my family expected, a struggling, burnout failure. And tonight, walking through that door, it would feel like stepping into a firing squad. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. It was a message from Alexa. Don't be late. And please, for the love of God, try to look presentable. Chat is important. Don't embarrass me. I let out a hollow laugh that scraped against my dry throat. Chad is important. Oh, if only she knew. To her, he was the golden ticket, the man who would finally prove she was superior in every way. To me, he was Subject 4009, the central figure in a sprawling multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme I'd been unraveling. File by encrypted file. 5 years, they'd seen me as the typist, the underachiever, the disappointment. What they didn't know was that I wasn't struggling at all. I was the director of internal compliance and ethics for the very company Chad thought he was impressing. I made 3 times what he likely earned. And if Mom knew she drained me dry, cars, vacations, loans, unpaid debts, they'd all come knocking. So I let them believe the lie. Aubrey the failure, Aubrey the decoy, the sister who couldn't keep her life together. The weight of the last 72 hours pressed down on me. I hadn't slept. Deadlines, audits, and data had consumed every waking second. I had barely touched solid food. My stomach churned and my hands trembled more as I gripped the wheel. And still, I had to put on the facade of being ordinary, insignificant, even pitiful. Tonight wasn't just a family dinner. This was a high-stakes performance, and I couldn't afford a single slip. I ran through the steps in my mind. Keep it simple. Keep it believable. Don't give them a hint of who you really are. Keep your tote bag handy, your briefcase hidden. Deep breath. Steady your hands. Look presentable enough to avoid suspicion, but tired enough to sell the story. The masquerade had always worked, but tonight, I felt a different tension in the air, a foreboding undercurrent I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just about family dynamics anymore. This was legal, federal. Everything was riding on the balance between perception and reality. And I had to be perfect, even in my exhaustion. I thought about Mom, pouring wine, beaming at Chad as if he were royalty. About Alexa, eyes bright and full of expectations, unaware she was flirting with disaster. They'd invited me here not just for a meal, but to witness a triumph of their own making, to watch me shrink under the weight of their judgment. I exhaled slowly, letting the cool evening air fill my lungs, trying to steady the nausea that twisted inside me. The last thing I needed was to show weakness before the storm. I reached for the car door, the metal cold under my fingers, and I hesitated. Just a second. One more second to gather myself. My reflection stared back at me again. This isn't you, Aubrey, I thought. It's just a show, a mask you've worn for years. They don't get to see the real me. Not yet. Not until the time is right. I imagined walking in, calm, measured, exuding the kind of quiet authority they couldn't possibly imagine I had. Every insult they'd thrown, every smirk, every sideways glance, they'd all be meaningless when the truth came crashing down. But for now, I had to be tired. I had to be the failure. I tried to center myself, eyes forward, hands steady, a slow, deliberate breath. The engine's hum was a small comfort, a reminder that the world outside my mother's driveway could wait. I could control this, even if my body was screaming at me that I couldn't. I thought of the files I'd been scrutinizing, the spreadsheets, the audit trails, the encrypted evidence. Chad had no idea, not a clue. He thought he was untouchable, and in a few hours, all of that would change. The adrenaline mingled with the exhaustion in a strange cocktail of calm and chaos. I caught a glimpse of the driveway through the windshield. My heart skipped a beat as I saw the laughter, the movement inside. Patricia, pouring wine with her practiced grace. Alexa, leaning into Chad, glowing in her new money silk dress. A perfect scene. But I knew the cracks beneath the surface. I knew exactly who was sitting at that table, what he had done, and the leverage I held in my hands. I felt the tiniest spark of satisfaction flicker in the pit of my stomach. Tonight, the roles would reverse. Tonight, they would have no idea what was coming. Another deep breath. The last flicker of doubt flickered out. I grabbed my purse, leaving the leather briefcase hidden, and opened the door. The cool evening air hit me, sharp and clear, and I stepped onto the driveway. My heels clicked against the pavement, every step measured, deliberate. One hand hovered over the doorbell, another clenched the tote bag, and I whispered under my breath, almost to the door itself, "You have no idea, not a clue what you've done." And with that, I pushed the door open and stepped inside, ready to play my part, ready for what was about to unfold. I stepped through the front door, and the air inside hit me like a wall, warm but sharp, the kind of silence that's heavy with expectation. The laughter I'd heard from the driveway vanished the second I crossed the threshold, replaced by that stiff, performative quiet only families know how to pull off. Mom was the first to notice me. She didn't say hello, didn't ask how I was. Her eyes scanned me like I was a menu item she didn't like, lingering on my wrinkled blouse and scuffed flats. A tiny curl of her lip betrayed the judgment she'd been hiding all these years. "You're here," she said, voice flat, no warmth, just accusation. I leaned back against the door for a moment, giving myself a second to breathe. "Hello to you too, Mom. Came straight from work. Long week," I said, keeping my voice raspy, subdued, calm. Nothing to give away. I could feel her disapproval like static in the air. Alexa, perched on the edge of the white sofa like she was royalty, cast me a look that mixed annoyance and pity. Her dress shimmered under the chandelier, expensive and deliberate, every detail screaming. "I belong here," she scoffed. "Honestly, Aubrey, you look like you've been sleeping in your car." I swallowed a laugh that burned my throat. Not enough energy to argue. "I haven't slept much. I admitted. Voice quiet but steady. Deadlines, data entry. Mom laughed. A sharp, barking sound that grated under my skin. Her eyes darted around as if measuring me against some invisible standard. Well, don't just hover like a ghost. Come meet someone who actually understands a career. I moved toward the living room. And there he was, Chad. Handsome, sharp-suited, perfectly coiffed hair. A man meant to impress, to dominate the room. And yet there was something jarring about seeing him in person after knowing him in files and audits for the last 72 hours. I knew him better than he knew himself. His social security number, bank accounts, allergies, the way he preferred terrified assistants, every detail filed in my memory like evidence. And here he was, smiling, extending a hand with that practiced charm meant to disarm. "You must be Aubrey," he said, grip firm, too firm, the kind of handshake designed to assert dominance. "Alexa has told me so much about you." His eyes flicked over me, assessing, dismissing, categorizing. Prey, unimportant, beneath notice. "Nice to meet you." "Chad," I said, keeping my smile neutral, my skin crawling at the contact. "I've heard a lot about you, too." Alexa's arm slithered through his, squeezing his bicep. "I've been gushing," she said, practically glowing. "Chad is going places. He's an executive. Aubrey, a real one at Omnicorp." The name hung in the air like a weapon. Omnicorp. I repeated it under my breath. Neutral, non-reactive. That was impressive. If your world revolved around suits and numbers that meant nothing to you... Mom bustled in, tray of appetizers in hand, bypassing me completely. "He's in charge of, what was it again? Chad's strategic accounts, global strategic accounts and logistics," he corrected, puffing out his chest. "High pressure environment. Only the sharks survive." He winked at Alexa. She giggled, eyes sparkling with admiration. I murmured, almost to myself, "Billions? That's a lot of responsibility. Must be careful with the details." Chad laughed. Dismissive? "Details are for the grunts. Aubrey, I deal with the big picture, the vision." "Right. The vision," I said, forcing a small, tight smile. The absurdity was almost comical. They were performing a play about power and success, completely unaware that the director of the show, the person who held all the details, was standing right in front of them. Alexa tugged him toward the dining room. "Come on, let's eat. Don't let the food get cold while we explain corporate hierarchy to Aubrey. She'll never get it anyway." I followed, watching Mom pour wine, fawn over Chad like he was royalty. And in that moment, the twisted thought crossed my mind, they think I'm the loser here. Charity case. They think I'm the weak one, but I knew the truth. I knew exactly who Chad was, what he'd done, and what was coming. I felt a strange calm settle over me, a chilling contrast to the exhaustion that still clung to my body. They were playing the game, and I was about to rewrite the rules. Every look, every laugh, every whispered comment about image and success, they didn't have a clue. And that was their biggest mistake. I sat at the end of the table, the spot reserved for kids or unwanted guests, and watched the performance unfold. Chad, in his perfectly tailored suit, was the picture of confidence, hair immaculate, watch gleaming, posture sharp. He laughed at his own jokes, puffing out his chest like he owned the room, and my mom and sister hung on every word. Mom poured wine like it was liquid gold, Alexa's hand never leaving his arm, eyes bright with admiration. They were completely consumed by the illusion, blind to reality. And here I was, sitting there, exhausted, plain clothes, scuffed shoes, but with a clarity they could never fathom. Every gesture, every word from Chad, I cataloged. His arrogance was loud and sloppy, revealing more than he realized. He spoke of strategic accounts, global logistics, billions in flow. Yet his eyes darted nervously when I murmured a small comment about attention to detail. The funny thing, they had no idea who they were really entertaining. I leaned back slightly, picking at the chicken on my plate, metal against china, heavy and deliberate. Every bite, every glance I threw was part of the act, selling the image of exhaustion and struggle, and it worked. Mom's eyes flickered with disapproval. Alexa's smile strained just a touch, but they bought it. I was exactly what they expected. The struggling, invisible sister. Little did they know, I was the one controlling the scene. Chad gestured expansively as he explained some high-pressure project, emphasizing his vision and leadership. Details are for the people in the basement, he said, and I could practically see the invisible halo of self-importance floating above him. I forced a small, tight smile. Right, the vision, I murmured. Neutral. Calm. My voice was unassuming, but inside, I was analyzing every misstep, every procedural error, every overconfident word. He thought he was untouchable, and he was wrong. I glanced at the tray of appetizers Mom had placed in front of him. The care, the attention to perfection, it was almost comical. All this effort to impress someone who was about to be exposed. I felt a tiny thrill, like a secret shared only with myself. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were fawning over a man who would soon wish he'd never learned my name. Alexa leaned closer, whispering admiration, and I caught a glimpse of Chad's hand twitch as he adjusted his tie. Little things, subtle tells, but to me they were glaring. He was overconfident, sloppy in a way only arrogance can make you. Every smile, every slight pause, every exaggerated claim about his responsibilities was a crack in his armor. And trust me, I noticed. I let the silence stretch just a fraction, allowing the tension to seep in. My outward appearance was that of a weary sister, but inside, I was calculating the steps, anticipating the reactions, the files, the spreadsheets, the encrypted evidence. They were all ready, and every second brought me closer to the moment where the illusion would shatter. Chad leaned back, swirling the wine in his glass, eyes flicking around, making sure the attention remained on him. And Alexa, utterly captivated, laughed at something I barely heard. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she placed another plate in front of him. They had no clue what they were witnessing. No clue who was really in control. I felt a strange calm wash over me, a mix of fatigue and focused anticipation. This wasn't just observation, it was preparation, a prelude to the inevitable reveal. I thought about how absurd it all looked. From the outside, the perfect house, the china, the wine, the laughter all performing, all for Chad. And here I was, pretending to be the failure, cataloging every slip, storing every tell. He prided himself on the big picture, the vision, but neglected the small, crucial details, little things that would unravel him completely. The room buzzed with superficial energy. Chad spoke, gesturing as if conducting an orchestra. Alexa's laughter rang a little too high, Mom's smile slightly too tight, and me, I sipped my water slowly, letting the quiet confidence settle in. They didn't notice, but I was orchestrating too, from the shadows, invisible but omnipresent. My mind traced the path from the kitchen to the files in my encrypted drive, the sequence of steps that would ensure he couldn't escape what was coming. Every move calculated, every word measured. I caught his gaze for a moment, and he didn't see me. He was too busy performing the version of himself he wanted the world to believe. The arrogance, the smugness, the jokes, they were all playing right into my hands. The contrast between appearance and reality was delicious, a sharp thrill that pricked at the edges of my exhaustion. I let it sit there, a quiet, simmering power, knowing that when the time came, every pretense, every mask would crumble. Dinner went on, the chatter, the clinking of cutlery, all part of the facade. I moved through it with measured movements, subtle reactions, cataloging, observing. Chad didn't see me, didn't know the person across from him was the one who held the lever of control. And in that silence, in that carefully maintained calm, I felt the deep satisfaction of being the unseen hand, the quiet storm gathering strength. The longer they performed, the more obvious their mistakes, the closer I got to revealing everything. And when that moment came, it would be absolute, irrevocable, and chilling. Chad leaned back in his chair, swirling the wine in his glass like some kind of king surveying his kingdom. "You know, Aubrey," he started, a smirk curling at the corner of his mouth. "Image is everything. Perception is reality. If you look like a loser, people treat you like one." His tone was almost patronizing, a mix of condescension and that rehearsed charm he thought would make me small. Alexa giggled, perched on his arm, eyes sparkling. Mom nodded approvingly, lips tight with pride at her daughter's apparent good fortune. I forced a small, tight smile and took a deliberate sip of water, letting the silence hang just a beat longer. Inside, I was anything but intimidated. There was something almost absurd about him. Sitting there lecturing me Aubrey the typist, the family scapegoat on the nuances of professional image. The irony was delicious. He had no idea who he was dealing with. Every gesture, every phrase he flung at me revealed the cracks in his armor, the overconfidence that would be his undoing. "Take the watch," he continued, tapping the face of the $40,000 timepiece. "It's not just a tool. It tells the world you're smart enough to take what you're worth." I let a small, dry laugh slip, low enough that only I heard it. "Take what you're worth," he said, as if he understood the concept. Oh, he understood taking money. Sure, but not not consequences, not the cold weight of real accountability. That's where I came in. Alexa leaned in, whispering some bit of praise into his ear. Mom's eyes were glued, sparkling with that dangerous mix of pride and envy, the kind only parents get when they feel their family is finally winning. I watched them, the illusion so thick it almost made me dizzy. But I was steady, calm, almost predatory. Every smirk, every boast, every puffed up comment Chad made was another brush stroke painting his own downfall. And I was holding the brush. "Perception matters," Chad said, voice louder now, leaning forward slightly, his grin wide. "You have to look the part to get the part. That's why I drive the car I drive, wear the watch I wear. You can't succeed if people think you're a failure." I nodded slowly, polite, measured, letting the words hang in the air, tasting their absurdity. He had no clue that I was the one who wrote the rules he was currently breaking. The woman in front of him, the one in the plain blouse, the one he thought he could dismiss, was the very person holding the keys to his empire, or rather, the part of it he was about to lose. "So, Aubrey," he continued, voice dropping like he was leaning in to impart some grand truth. "What keeps you busy all day? Alexa says data entry. But that's vague. Are you filing insurance claims? Typing captions for websites? Something more mundane?" I'm sure. The chuckle that followed was almost theatrical. Alexa joined in, high-pitched, teasing, and I set my fork down, metal clinking against the china in a deliberate, audible gesture. A tiny ripple of pause spread across the table, unnoticed by Chad, barely catching Alexa's attention. Perfect. I leaned back slightly, my voice calm, measured. "It's a bit more complex than that," I said, almost softly, almost conversational. And then I watched it happen. The first flicker of unease in his gaze, the subtle twitch of muscle around his jaw. He didn't know yet, but he sensed it, the shift, the undercurrent he couldn't name. He laughed it off, trying to regain control, leaning back, gesturing grandly, puffing up his chest. But it was the tiniest crack in the performance, enough for me to see it. That crack, that moment of imbalance, was my leverage inside. I allowed myself a small thrill, a quiet internal acknowledgement he was about to meet the version of Aubrey he had never anticipated. Mom hovered slightly, anxious, unsure whether to intervene or enjoy the display. Alexa was frowning now, sensing a change in the energy, unable to put her finger on it. And Chad, oblivious, continued, gesturing at the watch, the suit, the imaginary empire, still unaware that the entire table, the food, the wine, and the applause were meaningless in the face of what was coming. I let the silence stretch, breathing deliberately, tasting each word, each gesture, each breath. The calm that filled me was almost chilling, a quiet anticipation that made the room feel tight, charged. And as Chad continued to lecture about perception, about success, about the importance of appearances, I felt a subtle, satisfying shift within myself, the first hint that I wasn't just enduring this dinner. I was orchestrating it. I was the observer and the director, the calm eye in the storm. And Chad. He had no idea he was sitting at the center of the tempest I was about to unleash. I set my fork down slowly, letting the metallic clink echo just slightly against the china. The room was quiet, a tense lull between Chad's arrogance and the family's fawning, and I allowed the pause to hang. I looked at him, and for the first time, I let the mask slip, not the one he thought he knew, the one he'd been sneering at all night, but the real me. My voice dropped, calm, almost surgical. "You know, Chad, there's something we need to discuss." He tilted his head, smirk flickering as if preparing for a witty retort, and I leaned forward just slightly. The calm I carried felt like a weight pressing against his chest, an invisible hand tightening. Chad's smile faltered almost imperceptibly. "Oh, and what would that be, Aubrey?" he asked, his voice still confident, but a tremor just beneath the surface betrayed him. I reached into my tote bag slowly, deliberately, letting my hands linger on the zipper for a moment. Everyone in the room, except me, assumed this was just a bag, a purse, a casual accessory, nothing more. But inside, it held the power to destroy him. I unzipped it and pulled out a sleek black folder, leather-bound, stamped with the gold emblem of Omnicorp. The light caught the emblem just right as I placed it on the table in front of him. "Open it," I commanded, my voice even authoritative, and the kind that didn't invite argument. The room went silent. Alexa's laughter died mid-chirp, her eyes widening in confused apprehension. Mom's hand froze mid-air, wineglass hovering, as if she suddenly realized that the evening had pivoted entirely outside of her control. Chad blinked, his hands hovering over the folder, eyes flicking to me, then to the emblem, then back. There was a tremor in his jaw, a small but revealing twitch. He was processing, and it was wrong. All wrong. Finally, he reached for the folder, fingers shaking, and opened the cover. The first page was a personnel file. Bold red letters stamped across the top screamed, "Terminated." Underneath, a photo of him withdrawing cash from an ATM in the Cayman Islands. He stared at it, lips parting, eyes wide, pupils dilated. I leaned back, arms crossed, keeping my expression neutral. But inside, my heart was steady, deliberate, calculating. The moment had arrived, and I controlled it completely. "My name," I said, voice low, precise, almost melodic, "is Aubrey Vance. You might not know my face. Chad, because I usually operate out of the Chicago office. But you know my title. You've sent emails to my department. You know the work we do." I watched his face closely as the color drained from his cheeks. His confidence, that carefully constructed veneer, was crumbling under the weight of reality. "Director of Internal Compliance and Ethics." I continued, letting the words land deliberately. Each syllable was a hammer striking against his overinflated ego. He choked on the air, a hoarse whisper escaping. You're the Reaper." "Yes," I said, almost pleasantly, a subtle, chilling smile playing at the corners of my lips. "I prefer director, but both work." Mom's hand flew to her mouth, a quiet gasp of confusion and disbelief. "Director Aubrey. But you said you were a typist. You barely made rent," she stammered. Her words tumbled out like a rush of disbelief, trying to make sense of the impossible. I lied, I said, finally letting my voice carry the steel it had concealed beneath exhaustion all evening. Every time I earned, every promotion, every bonus, I hid it because I knew what would happen if you found out. I wanted to see if you loved me, Mom, or just what I could buy you. The room went still. Alexa's jaw slackened, her gaze flitting between me and the folder. The gap between perception and reality yawned wide. They had underestimated me for decades, and now it was painfully obvious. Chad tried to rally, voice breaking, still trying to cling to some semblance of control. "You printed this at Kinko's? It's a joke, right? A sick joke." His hands shook as he gestured, the veneer of authority slipping through his fingers like water. I shook my head, calm, deliberate. "No joke," I said, and pulled my phone from my pocket. I dialed the chief legal officer, letting the silent gesture of holding the phone add weight to the moment. "He's waiting to authorize freezing your assets." The car in the driveway, already en route. The watch evidence. I met his eyes, cold, unwavering. His eyes darted to the clock, the folder, me. Panic was rising, palpable, physical. The first beads of sweat formed on his upper lip, glistening under the chandelier light. Chad rose suddenly, chair toppling backward with a deafening crash. "You can't do this. Do you know who I am? I bring in millions." His voice cracked, desperate. I remained seated, calm. A predator observing prey, voice smooth, measured. You stole millions from that company. Chad, I corrected, and as of 9 this morning, you are no longer an employee. You are a liability. Alexa shrieked, grabbing his arm, trying to anchor him to the room. You're crazy. Look what you're doing. You're making up insane lies to humiliate him, she cried, eyes wide, hands trembling. Mom took a step forward, lips tight, assessing the reality she had so casually ignored all these years. Apologize to Chad, now she demanded, though the authority behind her words was suddenly hollow. Chad's phone clattered to the table as he attempted to call security, his fingers frantic. I'm calling the police. You're harassing me. I shook my head slowly. Calm. Voice firm. Go ahead. It will save me the trouble. The FBI is already building the indictment, and your assets are frozen. The air felt thick, heavy, the room compressed around him. He looked at Alexa, pleading, desperate, and she faltered for a second, trying to grasp a fantasy that had just dissolved into raw terror. The sweat on his brow glimmered in the chandelier light. His tie loosened, posture slumped, hands trembling. He was processing impossibility in real time, trying to reconcile the confident man he thought he was with the criminal he had become. My heart beat slowly, methodically, each pulse a reminder that I was in control. Each gesture, each calm breath, was a measured step toward his inevitable collapse. I opened the folder again, revealing a transcript of messages on the company server. His other fiancée in Miami, the condo purchased, the shell company transfers. Alexa's knees buckled slightly, and I caught her before she hit the floor, holding her upright. Her sobs were raw, wrenching, the fragile illusion she had clung to shattering. Clingy, she whispered, trembling. He called me clingy. I nodded, cold but measured. He needed a local address. He needed someone with a clean credit history to co-sign the lease. He was setting you up to take the fall if things went south. My words sank like stones into the room. Alexa's sobs intensified, body shaking. Mom stepped back, finally seeing the power in me, the authority that had always been invisible but undeniable. Chad tried to speak, to argue, to bargain, but his voice was thin, brittle. Every excuse, every threat, every angry gesture was met with calm authority. I recited facts, timelines, authorization codes, the specifics of bypass protocols, the audit trails. Each revelation chipped away at his ego, leaving nothing but raw, exposed terror. Open it, I repeated calmly, and he did, fumbling. Every page he turned revealed another layer of his crimes. Every line of evidence, every photo, every transaction, every record, he could see it all, and it crushed him. The weight of inevitability settled in the room, thick and suffocating. His chair toppled, his voice broke, his composure dissolved, and the reality finally struck. The man who had lorded over family dinners, over colleagues, over spreadsheets, over perception itself, was powerless. The Reaper, as he had whispered, the one he had underestimated for years, had arrived. And I, sitting calmly in the eye of the storm, was the instrument of his reckoning. Alexa clung to me, sobs racking her body. The fantasy dissolved, replaced by the stark truth. Mom, finally aware of the reality she'd ignored for decades, looked at me with awe, fear, and a reluctant respect. And Chad, for all his arrogance, all his rehearsed confidence, all his belief in appearances, finally saw what he had been blind to: the quiet, unassuming sister was the one holding the power. He had no escape, no allies, no illusions left. And the room, for the first time that evening, understood that the game had changed entirely. The quiet of the suburban street shattered suddenly, not with sirens or flashing lights at first, but with a subtle shift in the air, a signal only my trained eye could read. I walked to the window, peering through the blinds, and saw the unmistakable black SUVs roll to a stop at the curb. 3 of them, perfectly positioned, blocking any exit. No noise yet, just the overwhelming presence of authority waiting, patient, methodical. My heart remained steady, pulse calm. This was the plan, executed perfectly, and Chad had no idea. Outside, Chad was fumbling with the keys to his luxury sedan, the engine sputtering and dying as he slammed the ignition repeatedly. His usual confidence, the swagger that had dominated the dinner table, was gone. Panic painted across his face in sharp, brutal lines. I could see the calculation in his eyes, the desperate thought process racing. Maybe if I drive fast enough, maybe if I get to the street before the agents reach me, I can still escape. But he didn't realize the remote disable protocol I had authorized 10 minutes earlier had already cut the engine. Every escape route was sealed. He was trapped, and he knew it. Alexa appeared beside me at the window, eyes wide, frozen in a mix of fear and awe. Her earlier fascination with Chad had dissolved entirely, replaced by raw recognition of the consequences he now faced. Mom was behind her, lips pursed, eyes darting from Chad to the SUVs, finally comprehending that the evening had completely shifted beyond her control. The neighbors had gathered, curtains twitching, porch lights on, eyes and smartphones trained on the unfolding spectacle, and I felt the calm settle deeper in my bones, methodical, almost clinical. As I watched the scene, this was execution of justice, precise, deliberate, inevitable. The agents stepped out, hands on holstered weapons, faces set and professional. One shouted, voice carrying across the street, authoritative and cutting through the panic. Step out of the vehicle, keep your hands visible. Chad froze, hands gripping the wheel, eyes darting between the SUVs and the house. His mind raced, futilely attempting to negotiate, to calculate, to find a loophole. But there wasn't one. I stepped onto the porch, framed in the glow of the entryway, and he saw me. That recognition, the knowledge that I had orchestrated every detail, that I was the one who had initiated the asset freezes and coordinated the agents, hit him with the force of a physical blow. The fear in his eyes was raw, unmasked, and utterly human. Agent Miller, calm and professional, acknowledged my presence with a nod, his respect implicit. Director Vance, we secured the perimeter as requested, he said, voice steady. Asset seizure warrant signed 5 minutes ago. Teams are at his apartment and storage unit in Miami. I handed over the black folder. Everything meticulously organized, internal audit documents, chat logs proving flight risk, affidavits from his assistant detailing the document shredding and unauthorized transfers. Chad's mouth opened and closed, silent, pale, lips quivering as the reality of the situation anchored itself in his mind. He wasn't just facing a temporary inconvenience. His empire, his reputation, his control, all of it was collapsing, and I was the architect of its fall. The lead agent called to Chad, authoritative, cutting through the tension. Turn around. Chad hesitated, one last desperate calculation, then complied. Slowly, painfully. The metallic click of handcuffs resonated in the quiet street like the final punctuation on an unspeakable sentence. Alexa gasped, a mixture of disbelief and lingering fear. While Mom's face shifted, comprehension mixing with awe and residual disapproval. The neighbors, eyes wide behind curtains and porch railings, were witnessing the collapse of a man who had dominated their suburban peace for just a brief illusion of time. Chad was led toward the SUVs, hands cuffed, body rigid, eyes darting, seeking any path to reclaim the freedom he once thought untouchable. Every step he took was a study in desperation. He glared at me, a raw, primal hatred in the depths of his gaze. But he could not escape the truth I represented. No smirk, no charm, no bribes. No manipulation could rewrite the reality laid bare in front of him. I walked alongside Agent Miller, black folder still in hand, maintaining the calm precision of someone who had orchestrated the entire operation from a position of hidden authority. Alexa's sobs had quieted, replaced by a tense curiosity and shock as she followed the scene from the porch. Mom, still clutching the wine glass she hadn't quite set down since the first shock, whispered, barely audible, Is it really over?" I met her gaze, voice, calm, steady. "It's over, Mom." Chad's phone, which he had frantically been using moments earlier to call for backup or reinforcements, now lay useless in his pocket. The asset freezes had gone through, every account inaccessible, every luxury seized. His plans, his calculated manipulations, every layer of his constructed persona dissolved in the span of moments. I watched, unflinching, as he realized the scope of his failure, his empire rendered inert, all through meticulous preparation and calm execution. The agents guided him into the SUV. He pressed his face against the glass, eyes searching, pleading, not for Alexa, not for Mom, but for me. And in that look, there was no anger, no mockery, only pure, unadulterated fear, the acknowledgement that the sister he had underestimated, the one he mocked, the one he assumed powerless, was the fulcrum of his downfall. Alexa's face, streaked with tears and blush, mirrored the collapse of illusions, as the man she had elevated to godlike status in her imagination was reduced to a trembling, handcuffed figure. The SUVs began to move, the lights of authority reflecting off every surface. The quiet street, previously a suburban tableau of calm evenings, had been transformed into a theater of justice, a vivid demonstration of consequences enforced with precision. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, whispers spreading like wildfire. Every detail of the event had been deliberate, controlled, and I observed it with a calm detachment, the way a conductor might watch an orchestra execute a complicated, perfect symphony. Alexa clung to my arm, sobbing quietly. Now, finally understanding the reality of the man she had believed she could rely upon, he was going to leave me behind, she whispered, voice trembling. I squeezed her shoulder, soothing, steady. He needed you to cover him. You were never in danger of failing, only of being used. You're safe now. All of it's contained. He can't touch you. Not anymore. Mom, now more composed, finally spoke, voice low but firm. Aubrey, I had no idea. Her words hung in the air, a mix of disbelief, residual judgment, and an emerging respect for the control I wielded. For decades, she had underestimated me, ignored my accomplishments, and relied on the illusion of my struggle. That dynamic had shifted irrevocably. She understood, finally, that the daughter she thought weak and struggling was, in reality, a woman of formidable authority and precision. The agents had secured the perimeter, checked every escape route, and confirmed that his assets were frozen. They were efficient, professional, but their respect for my role was evident. They weren't just following protocol, they were executing a plan I had designed, coordinated, and timed perfectly. Every moment of panic, every futile attempt at escape, every desperate glance from Chad was a testament to the precision and power of preparation, meeting execution. And through it all, I remained calm, poised, the orchestrator of the evening's climactic resolution. Chad's SUV rolled to a stop at the edge of the driveway, lights reflecting off his panicked face. He turned briefly, looking back at the house, at Mom, at Alexa, his expression, a mixture of fear and disbelief, landed on me one last time. There was nothing left to say, no sneer, no smirk, no dominance. Only the stark realization that control had slipped through his fingers entirely. And as the agents closed the doors and drove away, the street returned to an eerie calm, punctuated only by the fading hum of engines and the lingering shock of those who had witnessed the event unfold. Alexa, still clutching my arm, let out a long, shuddering breath. It's really over, she said, her voice small, raw. I nodded, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. Every bit of it, I said, voice calm but resolute. He won't be coming back. The FBI, the asset freeze, every control measure we put in place, it's done. Mom, still processing, muttered, almost to herself, I can't believe this. After all these years. Her gaze flicked to me, and in that look, there was acknowledgement, recognition of authority, of planning, of calm intelligence executed with perfect timing. It was a quiet respect, perhaps mingled with residual fear, but undeniable. She understood. Finally, the balance of power had shifted. I was no longer the overlooked, struggling daughter. I was the director, the enforcer, the one who controlled the outcome. For the first time that evening, I felt the tension leave my shoulders. The adrenaline of preparation, anticipation, and execution faded, leaving behind a deep, calm satisfaction. Every detail had been anticipated, every contingency accounted for, every reaction measured. Justice had been enacted, not with chaos or chance, but with precision, authority, and calm deliberation. And the street, once a quiet suburban tableau, now held the echoes of that precision, a silent testament to the orchestrated fall of a man who had thought himself untouchable. The house was quiet now. The storm passed, leaving a heavy, lingering silence in its wake. Alexa sat curled up on the sofa, clutching a throw pillow, her makeup streaked and ruined, the bright glow from earlier now replaced by raw vulnerability. Mom paced near the fireplace, hands fiddling with knickknacks, unable to sit, as if movement might somehow undo the reality she had just witnessed. And me? I sank into the armchair, glass of water in hand, letting the mask of Director Vance ease away, replaced by the deep, aching tiredness I'd been carrying for years. It was surreal, the shift in the air, in the balance of power. No more charades, no more pretending. For decades, I had played the role of the struggling sister, the scapegoat, the invisible one. Every visit here had been a careful performance, a test of patience and endurance. But now, the truth had reshaped everything. I was no longer the overlooked typist. I was the director, the orchestrator, the one who had controlled the night and secured justice. And with that truth came relief. A quiet empowerment that was both new and familiar, like reclaiming a part of myself I had hidden to protect others. Mom finally stopped pacing, sitting slowly in one of the chairs, eyes flicking between Alexa and me, director of internal compliance, and all this time, You've been hiding it from us. Her voice was soft, stripped of the usual imperious tone. She sounded small, uncertain, as if grasping for the right words, trying to reconcile the image of the daughter she thought she knew with the woman who had just upended their lives in the most methodical, controlled way imaginable. I nodded, letting the words settle, allowing her to process. I have hidden it because every time I earned or achieved something, you tried to take it. I wanted to know if you could love me for me, not for the money or what I could provide. I wanted to see if any of this me, not my success, mattered to you. The room went quiet, the truth heavy in the air. Mom's lips pressed together, eyes widening, and for the first time, I saw recognition, a kind of understanding that had been absent for years. She was starting to grasp that I had not been a failure, only a protector in disguise, hiding my strength to avoid being drained, used, or exploited. Alexa turned her gaze toward me, blinking rapidly, still absorbing the magnitude of the night. Her posture softened, the rigid, performance-ready exterior melting away as the weight of her misplaced admiration and misplaced trust in Chad settled in. We failed, didn't we?" she whispered, voice small, almost broken. "We failed to see you, to understand you." I smiled gently, the first real smile since the evening began, and leaned toward her, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder. "It wasn't easy, Alexa. You wanted to believe the fantasy so badly. You didn't notice the truth standing right in front of you. But you weren't failing me. You were being dragged down by an anchor." Her head tilted against my shoulder, a gesture we hadn't shared since we were teenagers, a simple sign of vulnerability and trust. I stopped the transfer. I continued softly, almost a whisper now. "Those documents you signed never filed. You're clear, not liable for any of his actions. The FBI knows you were a victim, not an accomplice. I made sure of that." Her sobs eased into weak, watery laughter, a mixture of relief and release. The tension of years, the guilt, the misplaced envy and rivalry, it all began to dissipate. Mom finally spoke again, voice softer, reflective. "And the money or salary, all of this?" Her tone was almost reverent, tinged with regret and awe. I sighed, setting my glass down. "Yes, Mom. More in a month than I ever let you think I made in a year. I hid it not to deceive you maliciously, but to see if you could value me beyond my means." She blinked, swallowing hard, finally seeming to grasp the magnitude of both the deception and the purpose behind it. I thought you were destitute," she murmured. "We worried. We thought we were helping." Her voice trailed off, realization dawning that she had misjudged me entirely, failing to recognize the careful balance I had maintained all these years. I leaned back, allowing the long, quiet breath of the house to fill me. For years, I had concealed who I was, living a double life to protect myself, to shield my family from both my power and the consequences of others' negligence. And now, with the weight lifted, the truth revealed, the relief was profound. No longer had to hide in plain sight, no longer had to perform as the weak or struggling sibling. I was seen, truly seen, for the first time, and it felt lighter than I had imagined, almost intoxicating in its clarity. Alexa finally looked up, face streaked with tears, but softer, more open than I had seen in years. "Real work," she said, a tentative smile forming. "No more consulting for boyfriends, no more fantasy lives. Just real work," I laughed quietly. The sound, warm, unguarded. "Yes, real work," I affirmed. "Entry level if you want. Start from the bottom. Learn properly. Build something real for yourself." She grinned, a clear, unpretentious sound that carried through the living room. Unburdened by performance or expectation. "Bottom sounds just fine," she said. And I realized in that moment, the true reconciliation wasn't just about exposing Chad or revealing my career. It was about rebuilding the trust and connection that had been strained by misunderstanding, envy, and misplaced judgment. Mom, quieter now, approached us, hand on her chest as if bracing for the weight of our conversation. "I still have my comments, my habits. Old habits die hard," she admitted softly. "But I see it now. I see you. I respect you. And maybe even a little fear is mixed in. But it's respect." I nodded, feeling the shift fully settle over us. The dynamic had changed irrevocably. We were still imperfect, still marked by years of misunderstanding. But the venom had dissipated, the narrative had changed, balance restored, recognition granted where it had been absent for decades. I rose, heading toward the car. My sleek black luxury sedan gleamed in the driveway, a symbol not of arrogance but of the life I had built, the identity I had chosen for myself. I unlocked it, glancing back at Alexa and Mom. She linked her arm through mine, smiling softly. "You promised to help me with my resume," she said. "Real work this time." Real work. I agreed, and as we stepped into the car, the house behind us seemed smaller somehow, diminished in the shadow of what had been exposed and resolved. The evening's tension had dissipated, leaving in its place a fragile but undeniable sense of empowerment, clarity, and the quiet joy of being finally, truly recognized. We drove away from the courthouse, from the shadows of Chad and his lies, into the open light of possibility. The road ahead wasn't without challenges, and the family wasn't perfect. But for the first time in a long time, the weight of hidden truth, the burden of unseen power, and the quiet vigilance of the years no longer constrained me. I was Aubrey Vance, director, sister, orchestrator of justice, and for now, that was enough. We were free to rebuild, to reconnect, to redefine what family could mean when honesty and empowerment replaced fear and deception. The horizon ahead was open, and as we drove, I felt lighter than I had in years, finally unburdened, finally whole. And just like that, the night ended, the lies unraveled, and the power finally shifted where it belonged. Aubrey had stepped out of the shadows, reclaiming her strength and exposing the truth, leaving her family and Chad forever changed. It's a reminder that perception isn't always reality, and sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one in control. If you enjoyed watching this story unfold, Consider liking the video and subscribing to catch more moments where truth and justice collide.